eye that was at his best, and the other eye was not that good. So he played for the country. He did extraordinarily well. Much later in life, somebody asked him on a television channel, what were the kind of challenges you faced when you lost your eye? So he said in one sentence, I think those are iconic words. He said, "I've only lost my sight, but I didn't lose my vision." So a leader has to have vision. It's only when he has a vision he can plan, he can convey it to the people, he can convey it to his team, and then take them along together to achieve the ultimate objective. Now, I've listed out five qualities that is essential for a leader. Obviously, I've said it's five C's. I've said credibility. You need to be good in communication. You need to develop a connect with the members of your team. You need to have the control and various things like that. So, what does anybody and everybody do? They communicate to people in one way or the other. Either it's in person, orally, or is by way of text messages, or by way of emails, or by way of various other forms and formats that you can think of. But communication is something which has got to be really important for anybody to go ahead, or anybody to convince others, or to try and list out the plans for the future. So in communication, the important thing is that it doesn't mean that the leader is always right. A leader must remember one thing: if he is the most intelligent person in a group, then he is in the wrong room. He should ensure that he has a lot of people who are smart enough, who will speak up, who will say what is good for the entire team per se, for all of them to collectively achieve a fantastic result. And the leaders should be more receptive. In that, amongst the things that I've written when it comes to communication, I've spoken about the talking to listening ratio. Now, just pause for a moment. All of you think, what is the ratio of you talking vis-a-vis listening? Just pause and think. In any kind of communication, be it in official or personal life, be it with your friends, be it with your relatives. Now, just pause and think. Find out the percentage of your listening and talking ratio. Do you listen more than you talk, or what is it? So, in communication, this is something which is very important. You need to be able to listen more, because when you listen more to your team members, you'll know exactly what are the issues that are there, what are the things that the team is doing well, and then it becomes easy for the execution of the overall plan. This is something that I always insist upon, because what happens is, like, I think Dr. Abdul Kalam was quoted as saying, when you talk, you only say what you know, but when you listen, you learn a lot. I think that's a classic from a great man. He obviously knows what he's talking about. He's achieved a lot. And of course, we all know about the late Dr. Kalam. He was a simple man, but he had a glittering career as a scientist, and then he went on to be even the president. So we all know about him. I don't need to say more. The other thing that a leader needs to be good is in the fact that he needs to be good in building a team, which is a very important thing for a leader, and it's very important for any organization. Because what happens is that unless you have the resources that are needed to achieve a plan, or to try and ensure that you succeed in your plans, you need to have a team. Unless you have a team, like I said, it's not going to be possible. But are you going to just pick up somebody and make a team, or are you going to identify who are the people that are suited, who are all the people who are, uh, let's say, will be having the aptitude that is required to be a part of your team? What is it that they bring to the table? What is it that they can contribute to your organization or to your team? So these are all the qualities that you need to assess. But once again, we have to go back to the vision part of it, because unless we have a vision and we have conviction in that vision, we will not end up building a team which is going to be successful. Because as they say, if the start is not good enough, the end result is not going to be good either. So for that reason, we need to try and build a team. And the important thing is that for the team members uh, to do their very best all the times, you need to try and encourage them. Encouragement is the best form of praise, which has been proved uh, the case in many walks of life, and by many great leaders, by great coaches, by great um, uh, sports persons, you name it. It's been proved the best way of motivation as well when it comes to getting the best out of the people. So, team building is something a leader has to be good at. And the other thing that a leader needs to be also good at is decision making. Now, how does one arrive at a decision? It's very important because you need to take a decision as a leader more often than not. Now, let's imagine a 50 over cricket match is played. You're talking about 100 overs, which is without any extra deliveries, you're talking 600 deliveries, which means imagine the number of decisions that are made on one day. Starting from the bowler, he takes a decision each and every ball where he is going to bowl, how he is going to bowl. And similarly, a batsman has got to see the ball and then decide what he is going to do, how he is going to handle it, how he is going to score runs. Now, which means you're talking about 1,200 runs there. Then the fielder has to anticipate. He has to decide where the ball is going, how quickly can he get to the ball. Now, imagine the quantum of decisions that are being made on the field on one particular day of a one day game. So, which means that I go back to my line that all of us at some stage or the other, whether we like it or not, we need to be leaders in the sense that we need to also decide, take decisions, we need to be proactive, we need to communicate as well. As a bowler, you communicate to the captain as to what you want. As a batter, you constantly keep engaging with your partner as to what is happening around. You compare notes, and all these things happen. So the thing is that decision making. How do you arrive at a decision? You first need to have an open mind to collect all the information that is out there. Yes, you need to sift the information. The trick is in not collecting information, but the trick is in collating and also ensuring that you filter out what is not required. Now, you would have seen in a lot of cases, some leaders or captains or bosses in organizations are very short on patience and they don't listen to others. They just come out and say, okay, lads, this is the decision and this is what we are going to engage ourselves in from now on. Now, what percentage of success do you give to such styles and that kind of a leadership? Uh, it will work in some cases very well. It may not work in many cases. Uh, but once again, these are all situation based and it's also need based. But nonetheless, what is important is that the leader has to assimilate all the information that's given, then he's got to take a call and take a decision. Now, here there's a very good differentiation that we need to really make here. Taking a decision by collecting all the information from all quarters possible, from your team members possible. Yes, at the end of the day, based on all the information that you get, you need to be able to take a decision. It may not be a decision that you like, and most often you will see leaders resorting to taking decisions which are popular, and that happens for the simple reason that in the event, the end result of the decision taken happens to be not so good, then the leader thinks he can draw upon the support of all the team members because it was a collective decision. Now, that is not the route that a good leader should take. I'm not against inclusive leadership, like I've written in my book, but it is very important for the leaders to be good in decision making, and he needs to be brave enough, courageous enough to take decisions. Because, yes, nobody can take a decision which is going to be proved right in the end. I spoke about close to about 1,800 decisions being taken on a cricket field during a one day game. How many of those decisions turn out to be right? Not necessarily every decision that's made on a cricket field during a one day game is right. It's just that you need to be taking decisions, you need to do that. It's only then it becomes a practice. It's only then you know what you don't need to do in the future. The one advantage of taking decisions is that you will know there are certain things that we cannot do because they have not worked in the past. But whereas if you don't take decisions, if you deter, if you hesitate, and you are averse to taking decisions, the organization or the individuals are not going to go ahead. Imagine, for example, let's say a prime sporting event in a team sport, for example, a hockey or cricket or whatever. A captain is not taking decisions that he needs to be taking. Imagine the plight of the team. What about a ship without a captain is going to be rudderless? So similarly, a leader has to definitely indulge in decision making because I'll tell you what. The other thing, if you were to ask me, as Raman, you've been a sports person, you've done various things apart from your years in the corporate world. Why do you think what happens on the sports field has relevance to other walks of life? The important thing there is that a lot of events have happened. People have witnessed it. They've seen the cause and the effect. They've seen people being proactive. They've seen people on the field being reactive. So, which means that there are a lot of lessons that can be learned out of those incidents. The other thing is that in sport, what happens is you are learning on the job. You face the flag. You don't have the experience, but you are learning on the job. You are given the responsibility. You start leading the team. You may not make the best additions. You may be losing to start off with. Everybody will criticize you, but whereas, let's say in a corporate world, what happens is you are primed towards, becoming a leader. You go through a course. You have an experience of, let's say, 5, 10 years of working, and then suddenly you're found to have the aptitude for leadership. Then you are given that particular designation, which means that it's almost a kind of a journey. It's almost a kind of a schooled thing of somebody becoming a leader. The other thing is that in sport, a leader has no place to hide. He's judged everywhere. He's judged all the time. And what it does is that it gets rid of the fear and of the fear of failure. He is not pausing and thinking, and he doesn't have the time to pause and think. He has to take decisions. When he has to take decisions, it's time bound. At least in the corporate, good in deciding on the team, which means that's the team that is built up for that particular series. And then he's also encouraging everybody all the time, and he's also taking decisions all the time, which means that he's got a certain distinct advantage over the others. So the interesting thing is that the things that happen on the sports field, if we just look at them as a source of entertainment and walk away from them, is one way a lot of people look at sport. That's fine. Sport is, of course, for entertainment and is also for people to admire the skills that the sports person show on the field. But if they were to pause and reflect on what has happened on a few days or on a few instances, there are a lot of things that you could learn from those incidents and the way people have handled that. And the other thing is, in my book, I had spoken to a lot of sporting icons. If you go through that book, you'll know in detail what exactly it is that they felt about what it is which makes sports persons of their lives relevant to the corporate world and leadership and other soft skills in life is that it's not their performance per se. It's their journey. It's the difficulties. It's the challenges that they faced and overcome. is the way they had to handle with absolutely no support. They had to do it on their own. For example, G. Milkha Singh, the guy to turn professional in golf in India. At the time that he turned, people would have thought, he was loony, because golf was one sport not many people knew about in India. They're all path setters. They buck the trend, so they're trendsetters. So it's the journey that is very important. Even, for example, if you take a Virat Kohli, now um, he needed to become responsible. He felt at a certain point in time. He was obviously a captain of the India under 19 side. He went through a phase in life where he felt that he didn't do the right things, and suddenly one morning he woke up and he said, "Okay, this is not the way I need to be if I want to become the best in the business." Then he went to the other extreme because he felt he needed to do it. He almost sort of did things that were not allowing to even get a proper good night's sleep, because he completely shifted his lifestyle. He changed his eating habits. He changed everything because he felt it's all right to suffer in the initial stages for long term goals to be achieved. And he went through a paradigm shift in the way he ate, in the way he did things, and he became so meticulous that he even started importing water that he drank in normal life, in everyday life, even when he was not on tours. So that kind of responsibility is something that leaders need to have as well. So the important fact of the matter is that these are all things that can be applied to people in different spheres of life, in all walks of life, and at different stages of life. It's not necessary for somebody to be a leader only if you're the key person in the organization. Let's say on a day-to-day level, let's face it, what does a traffic cop do, at least in my part of the world? He's managing things. He's showing leadership qualities there, because how people are. Vehicles coming from different directions, all of them want to get through at the same time. He's got to try and ensure smooth flow of the fire traffic. He's showing leadership and management qualities. Let's talk about a parking attendant. He's got to ensure that the vehicles are parked, and he's got to assess how long people have parked their vehicles. He's got to get these things going, because unlike in the UK and other countries, there are no meters and automation taking care of this. It's manually done in India. So these guys are again showing leadership and management qualities. The other fantastic example of you behaving like a leader is when you're a team player. For example, let's go back a little bit in time. When Dhoni was made the captain of the Indian team, he had about 4 or 5 former captains in his side. He had Dravid, he had Tendulkar, he had Kumble, he had other senior cricketers like Srinath. So what is he going to do? A raw guy who's hardly played 3 4 seasons, and these former captains, they said, let's give it to him. We'll take care of it, and he's good enough. Now, what did they do? Even though they were just members of the team then, after having been former captains, after giving up their captaincy, what did they do? They helped in Dhoni by way of assuming leadership and doing what needs to be done as they would have expected others to do when they were the captains. And conversely, what also is important is for a leader to realize that he has to be the best team player when he is the leader. It's not a case where he has to think, oh, I'm the boss, so you guys get on with it. He's got to be the best team player as a leader. So, what I'm trying to get at is that a good team player will make a good leader, and it's also important when a good team player, when he becomes a leader, he's got to stay as a good team player. So, I think I've been speaking for a while now. I hope it was interesting enough. So, what I'm going to do now is to give you guys time to frame your questions or think about the facts that you need to chat in this a window that we are given ourselves. I'll be glad to take on questions now.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm just trying to make more Kannan a co-host, so just allow me a second. First of all, thank you very much. This is Satish. I'm sure you can hear me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I can.
First, வணக்கம் சார். Very good to have you. ரொம்ப சந்தோஷம், மகிழ்ச்சியா இருக்கு. நாங்க MNM நண்பர்கள்ல எப்பவுமே பல நேரம் எங்களுக்குள்ளேயே சொல்லிக்கிறது என்ன அப்படின்னா, திரு கமல்ஹாசன் MNM தொடங்கின அப்பவே அவரோட முக்கியமான கூற்று என்னவா இருந்ததுன்னா, நான் தலைவன் இல்லை, என்னோட முக்கியமான பணி தலைவர்களை உருவாக்கு. So he clearly positioned himself as someone who is there to create the next crop of leaders, next generation of leaders. And from your wonderful introduction to your book, and I can also see that it's a synthesis of years and years of acute observation, being in the middle, going through it, living it, breathing it, talking to people, and you have formalized it and positioned it very well. Not just talk about game really. Let's say like Mike Brearley's Art of Captaincy, which is very game oriented, but you have put it right in the sweet spot of where the game meets the real world. And there are many people. Firstly, from my side and from MNM Nanbargal side, we wish you very, very best for the book. I'm sure it'll do well, and we want to see you move into the next avatar as a writer and make more and more of these wonderful pieces of works. So first of all, thank you very much for that. As you were talking, a set of questions has come in from different people in different parts of the world. And as I was collating it, I was also trying to formulate a way of putting this through to you. Because if we start asking one question at a time, we would be here till the cows come home, which they already probably have in Chennai. Firstly, I want to know, sir, how are you doing? How are things in Chennai, and how is family and health and all that? Is that all fine?
Thank you, Satish, for your wishes and also for your kind words. இப்போ சொல்லணும்னா எனக்கும் கமல்ஹாசன் அவர்களுக்கும் ஒரே ஒரு சிமிலாரிட்டி. நாங்கள் ரெண்டு பேரும் ஒரே ஸ்கூல்ல தான் படித்தோம், பட் அட் டிஃப்ரெண்ட் டைம்ஸ். ஸோ இப்போ எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ்ன்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, இஸ் ஆல்சோ ஹேட் இயர்ஸ் ஆஃப் எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ். இஸ் அ phenomenal achiever. He's also interacted with a lot of people. He would have seen a lot of challenges and overcome them in his time. And I'm glad that he's take it upon himself to say that I'm going to create leaders, and it's not that I'm going to be the leader myself. So I'm extremely glad, and maybe in those decades, I think the teachers we had inculcated all these qualities in us. I think we should thank our teachers, because it looks a little bit similar. So the thought process. Anyway, coming back to your question, thanks a lot. Everything is fine, but of course, the Tamil Nadu government has done a very good job of uh, fighting this pandemic. Of course, it's a very tough situation for leaders at all levels, be it central, state, or even in organizations, because this is a challenge that nobody even thought was something that they'll have to be handling. And it's also something that people are having to improvise upon, because every day there are new set of indications coming, new set of challenges being thrown up, when they think they have got hold of it and they've got the handle over it, but it's not happening. But all are fine, and hopefully it won't be long before something really happens which is going to put an end to this pandemic. Hopefully.
Kandipa, we are all praying for that as well, and I'm sure there is no time in history that has called for a strong, sensible leadership than this time in many ways, at least in our lifetimes. So, what are questions, I've just sort of gone through them, and there are 2 or 3, 4 broad themes that are emerging. And how I want to structure the next hour or so discussion is, I don't want this to be நாங்க வளவளா கொலகொலா பேசுற செஷனா இல்லாம, we want to throw the questions to you, and we want this to be a free flowing conversation. The main themes that have emerged are talking about leadership and the way you have positioned leadership not just on the sporting field, but also in the corporate world. Then there is, of course, as expected, many questions about your cricketing career, your coaching career on these fronts. I really want to know also what's in the water that both you and Kamal Hassan sir drank, which seems to be making a lot of difference. Uh, on the third side, there are questions about the specific coach as women's Indian cricket team. We have Linda, who's also part of our team, who really is interested in women empowerment. And so she wants to know some of the stories on that front. So in the மாதிரி broad themes இருக்கு சார். அண்ட் எல்லாருக்கும் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் நான் ஒரு வேண்டுகோள் என்ன விடுக்க விரும்புறேன் அப்படின்னா, நிறைய பேர் கேள்வி கேட்டிருக்கீங்க. ஸோ ஐ வில் ட்ரை டு கம்பைன் தீஸ் அண்ட் ஐ வில் கிவ் யூ an opportunity for you to ask that question directly to W.V. Raman sir. And I will start with the closer team members of MNM Nanbargal in the UK and then slowly start radiating out, if that's okay. Great.
That's fine. I'm fine.
Great. இதை பொறுத்து I'm going to start unmuting people and inviting them to talk. Before that, I would like to invite Kannan to say any words.
No, I think you touched upon the right things that we want to talk about today. And as you said, like, our leader Kamal Hassan has been very clear, like, in what he wants to develop as a party and how he has got the vision, like, Raman, you said, Tiger Patawadi talked about vision, like, and KH has got something similar as well. It's going to take a longer period because of what is involved, the amount of people and social re-engineering that needs to happen. But anyway, like, we would like to hear your thoughts. So without much further ado, I think Satish had Linda on your list first to go.
Correct. I have Ravi as the first to go because we'll start with the coaching side of things, sir, and then we'll bring in the leadership, and then we'll talk about the women's cricket team. I know time is dear, so we will try and keep it crisp. Is that all right, Kanan? So I'm going to unmute Ravi. Ravi, can you hear us?
Yes.
Ravi, okay, please go ahead with your question.
Hi, Raman, sir. First of all, best of luck for your new avatar. And yes,
thank you.
Like, my question to you is, like, your career as a coach has been quite impressive. Like, starting from the Tamil Nadu and then, like, going into Bengal cricket and then, like, having won an IPL of the KKR team as a batting coach. And then, like, from there you have moved to the head coach, like, for Indian women's team. Like, when like, what is your preparation every time there's a new team that's coming, and like, what is your preparation that because, like, you have your previous experiences also coming along with you, and like, if it's IPL, you're also working with the foreign players. So it's like, how do you really cope up with your previous experience, and how do you practice yourself? So it's like, that's, I think, like, this one is relevant not just for like cricket but for any field, because like we have been working with people who has their like own styles, and how do you like pick their style, and on top of that, how do you nurture something? So that's something that I really wanted to know from you, sir.
Basically, Ravi, as a coach, what I tend to look at is what is it the team needs. As a coach, what happens is what I think and the ego and all that should be absolutely shunted and locked up and thrown away into any water body which you can't even go back to again and retrieve it. So essentially what it is it's all about knowing, first of all, that's why engaging, talking to these guys, listening to them. What is it that they want? Where is it that they think they have done well? Where is it that they need to be worked upon? Where is it that they need to improve? And what exactly it is that they expect out of me. So when I join any team, that is what I first try and find out. Because in as much as I've been, let's say, with some other team earlier, they also have been playing this game in a certain way. Which means that I can't suddenly go and impose myself and say something which may be in total contradiction to what it is that they've been doing and what is it they were planning to do. So I need to first try and engage in a conversation, gain their trust, and then try and not to download them with suggestions all the time, with instructions all the time. I need to find out if once I get to hear from them as to what it is that they want to work on, where is it they want to improve, then I need to see them for a few sessions and assess if they've got it right about
Sure.
the areas that they need to
So
get better.
I have a
And
quick
if,
I have
yeah,
a quick follow-up question to that. Now, you
mm,
obviously would have arrived to this place through a journey. What was that journey? And I say this specifically with 2, 3 examples we have had in the past in mind. One is the disappointing episode of Greg Chappell being the coach of Indian cricket team. Then there was this controversy with Anil Kumble, who had a very scientific management-oriented coaching, which was not preferred to, at least by again, I don't want to go into the politics of cricket, but Ravi Shastri's way of light touch coaching was more preferred by at least Virat Kohli, at least in the public eye. So again, how was this journey to you, sir, to arrive at this place where you are, where it seems to be working for you?
no, that is something that I can't really talk about as to the things that happened with Greg Chappell or with Anil or what is currently happening with Ravi, because unless you are an integral part of the setup, uh, everything becomes a conjecture. So, which will be unfair on my part to even talk about it, because from the outside, you are, as you read from the press reports, that's all I also read. So, which means I don't know enough about what exactly transpired there and what were the reasons. Now, in terms of my journey has been very simple. I've always taken on challenging assignments, be it a state side, be it an IPL side, or be it whatever. For example, prior to becoming the coach of the Indian team, I was at the NCA as the batting coach. What happened was the NCA was sort of shut around 2015. And then they wanted to resume operations. They wanted to make it a high performance center. They said, why don't you take it up? So that was a very challenging time because nothing much was happening. There were a lot of things that people said was not happening right. They felt that NCA was no good for Indian cricket. There was a break of operations for a year and a half or so. Then I had to resume it. I had to do things in such a manner where not only people got rid of all the negative views they had about the things that happened at NCA, but also had to do things in such a manner that they love to come back there again, which happened. I thought that was something which I can call a success. The other thing that I do is that I don't think about what exactly is happening all around me. I only look at doing whatever best that I can do, which means that if I'm going to be thinking of sitting and taking cognizance of all that is happening around me, pay heed to all the noise that is going around me, then I'll be distracted. I'll not be able to focus on the job that I'm supposed to do. So I completely sort of go into kind of a bubble, as it were, and then try and get on with what I need to do. Yes, there will be times during my assignments that I will obviously, indulge in a little bit of chat about this, chat about that. That's fine. But that's the long and short of it. But primarily, it's always better not to get your mind cluttered, wanting to be aware of everything that's going on, which is not really going to help you execute your particular function and perform your duties.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. Now I would like to invite Arun Ayauraju from France, who is also part of the French team, MNM team. Arun, can you hear us?
Hello? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, sir. Hello, Raman, sir. Thank you.
Hello, Arun. How are you?
I'm good, sir. Thank you. So I'm Arun. I played for the French national team for the last 10 years in France, and now I started coaching as well. My question is from my cricket experience and also in corporate world. I can see there are more followers than leaders. So how can you make them or push them to become leader?
Nobody needs to push you. See, that is exactly my point. You don't need to be pushed. For example, I don't know the circumstances under which the people you observe being followers have happened. But in terms of becoming a leader is something that comes out from within you when you are looking to help others. For example, you might see your colleagues struggling, even on the cricket field. What would you do if, suppose, if a bowler gets it for three boundaries on the trot? What you would do, you would see the bowler, really, his head is hanging down in disappointment. He's wondering as to where he's going to get hit the next ball. So what do? You run up to him and you say, don't worry, it won't happen again. Why are you doing that? Because you want to encourage your teammate. Similarly, in an office environment, you might see a guy not really, meeting his targets. He's probably being hounded by his colleagues, other colleagues, or his immediate boss. He's under pressure to meet the targets, to sort of do well enough for him to get a raise or get a good appraisal or whatever. It's all about trying to really impart the knowledge that you have, or try and help him out with the suggestions that you think will make him better, be it on the field or be it in an office. Generally what happens is that you need to have the courage to go and tell them, because I can see where you're coming from. Some people say that, if I go and say, how will he look at it? Will he take it in the right spirit, or will he say, why are you being a nosy Parker? You should take the stance. You should have the view that I don't mind if he says I'm a nosy Parker, but there it is. I can see what will help him, get rid of his pressure, or what will help him to do better. You must have the mindset to go and tell him. Even if he snubs you, okay, fine. You extended your hand. Maybe even if he snubs you 2 days later, he'll feel bad. He'll come back to you and help you. He'll ask you for help rather. So that way, it's all within us. We need to see what is it that we need to do with the attributes that we have. Now, it's very difficult in a team or in an office environment, or in a sort of a functional team in an office, to make everybody a leader. There can be only one nominated, because it's going to be chaotic. If everybody is a leader or a captain, it's not going to work either. But that's what I meant. Even as a good team player, you can be a kind of a sort of self-proclaimed leader, as long as you don't overdo it.
Sure. And it makes perfect sense when you say during the introduction and in your book that it is a craft, it's a practice. One needs to learn to be a leader, also facing one's own fears, I suppose. And a leader is not somebody who drops from heaven, but is a man who practices that. Okay, great. Thank you, Arun. Thank you, sir. I would like to move on to Mr. Mohan Raj from Australia, and taking it perhaps into a slightly lighter vein. Mr. Mohan Raj has an interesting question going back many, many years. Mohan Raj, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you, Satish. Yeah, thank you. Hello, sir. Nice to meet you on this Zoom meeting.
Hi. Nice to meet you as well.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, in your first, in your debut test match, that's in Chennai, okay, 1988. You would be on an enormous stress, or some, I'm not sure. Since it's a first match, okay, you want to cement your place in the team. So that's that too in your hometown. The first innings, you didn't make a double figure, whereas in the second innings, you made 83 and got dismissed by Walsh. Though he won the test match, did he ever regret that you couldn't convert that into a century? Or in a later stage, how that innings helped you for your future innings?
See, the thing was that if you had probably followed my cricketing journey until that time, you would have realized that I started off more as a left-arm spinner who could bat a bit. So even 2 weeks prior to my batting at number 3 in the first innings and number 4 for India in that test match, I had batted at 7 or 8 for Tamil Nadu in a Ranji Trophy game. So which meant that, I was not somebody who was a top order batsman when I started my career, and then went on and became a top order batsman at international level. Now, there again, I was at a handicap. I didn't have the mindset, I didn't have the knowledge to plan like a batsman, a thoroughbred batsman, or somebody who started his career as a batsman. So for me, every net session was a big learning, and I had to make the most out of it. Okay, fine. It would have been nice to get 100. I didn't get, but again, it was one of the useful contributions in that test match. Disappointment, no, because I felt that given the circumstances and the nature of the pitch and the fact that I suddenly catapulted into playing at the top of the order, I thought I did a fairly good job. In cricket, yes, or as in life, it can always be better, but don't forget it could have been worse also.
Absolutely. I remember growing up, sir, some of those wonderful attacking shots that you played, especially in the colors, those beautiful cut shots through the square region on the offside, and they were a treat to watch. And for us, growing up, I mean, I was born in '84. That was after the '83 World Cup. So there was all the story of Chris Srikanth being the attacking opener from Tamil Nadu.
Yeah.
To W. Raman, it was a very natural progression, and this is wonderful. And thank you so much for all that. They're wonderful memories from childhood. So I want to stay just a moment on this. Even though your career was short for Indian cricket team, cricket is your life, and that's great. And as we see cricket especially in the test form, there are more failures than there are successes. There are very few batsmen and very few bowlers who stay injury free, who make a career, especially in the long form of the game. What is happening there? If somebody is coming up through the ranks, what can they do to improve their chances of success at that level, playing at the highest level?
See, it's very interesting that you talk about failures in cricket. Now, recently, I don't know if you heard that interview that I did with Rahul Dravid. And he even today maintains that in cricket, we fail more than we succeed. In fact, he says he failed more than he succeeded, because he says, if you look at the numbers, I played 160 odd test matches, and if you think 50 is success, you would see that I would have hardly got past 50 in 40% of the innings that I have batted. So he says, if you look at it along those lines, I'm a failure. So if he says that is failure, what about the rest? Which means what it is that you take up sport. There is no guarantee in sport ever, but you need to keep working hard. You need to try and keep doing whatever you need to do. But there again, success, as in, let's say, for the quantum of cricket, or for huge numbers that these Dravids and Tendulkars have churned up, that all comes with a lot of other things also coming into play as well. For example, in a team sport, you have you have to contend with the selectors. You need to have got opportunities to bowl or bat at the right time, at the right venues. There are a lot of other factors which are outside your control that come into play as well. This doesn't mean that I'm saying the people who are successful have only been successful because of sheer luck. No, there's a lot of hard work, a lot of things involved, but it's something that you can't explain in life. Like, you see a lot of guys who have done specialized in marketing. There are some who are phenomenally successful. There are some, who are not so successful. If it depends on what you would consider as something being successful, or somebody being successful. It depends down to your definition of success. It's
Sure.
about you. It's about you being the best that you can.
And I'm sure leaders role is important in that. Kanan?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say about the failure. There was this classic advertisement. I don't know how many of you have seen that. Michael Jordan, Nike commercial, where he talks about, I've taken last shots in the game and I failed 30 times. the more I failed, I succeeded, or something to that effect. Like, so he is known as a game winner. Like, but then the commercial was all about how many times he had failed to hit the game-winning shot. Like, and we're talking about Michael Jordan, the absolute GOAT in basketball. So, yeah.
And Kannan, I know I digress a little bit, but may I request you, Kannan, to quickly talk about your experience in the corporate world of dealing with failures?
I mean, corporate world, like, Raman touched upon that. Like, what happens is in sporting arenas, like, the lights are brighter, like, it's shining on the captain. So any mistake that they make, it's immediately visible to the entire world. But in the corporate world, it's all like, swept under the carpet. Like, you go in as a leadership, you can fail a few times before somebody wakes up on the board level and say, okay, this guy has failed a few times, like, so it's easy to hide failures in a corporate world than in a sporting arena.
I suppose that's what makes sports so unbelievable and interesting. Okay, so I want to slightly move into the more team aspects of it, how teams work together. And Badri Santanam from MNM Nanbargal UK has a question on that. Badri? Badri,
Yeah.
can you hear us?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Satish. Thank you very much, Raman sir. Been really very happy to join you, and seeing you here. We've been great fans of the Indian cricket team, and especially you're an absolute legend. Very elated to be talking to you. My question to you is basically when we were growing up. I'm a 1979 born. Already that's the 40s now. So we used to consider any time when India used to play against Pakistan, we used to say that, okay, be it in any tournament, and especially if it's World Cup, and if we are facing Pakistan, there used to be that kind of a feeling or an emotion as great Indian fans that if we win against Pakistan, we no matter what we are going to do later as an Indian team, we are happy that we consider that as winning the World Cup final. So I would want to try and kind of understand from you the kind of emotions or feelings when you were with the team, playing against Pakistan. What kind of interesting conversations were going on in the dressing room?
Thank you, Badri. Sir, I would just like to add one point to it. Also, how does the atmosphere in the dressing room translate into the field?
See, the important thing as far as atmosphere in a dressing room is that, if all of them are in a good mind space and the culture of the team is such that, it's something that people are really allowed to be themselves, express themselves and not stifled, then what happens is that comes onto the field. So along those lines, Badri, the thing is that it's not that the players suddenly, either raised the bar and became better cricketers because they're playing against Pakistan. It is not that. It doesn't happen that way in sport. You're as good as you are. So it can't be a question of you suddenly spiking your ability, by 300% overnight, or at the same time going down south by a 500% overnight. It doesn't happen that way. The thing was that it was something that people thought was very important to them emotionally. Let's face it, sport does involve a lot of emotion. Not necessarily the players or the sports persons per se, but as far as the supporters of a nation is concerned, as far as the public is concerned, there's a lot of emotion involved in it. And given the other factors and various other happenings at that point, the supporters of respective countries from India and Pakistan obviously wanted their nation to win against the other. Otherwise, as far as the interpersonal relationship between the players was definitely good. There are a lot of good friends, a lot of good friendships were made that time. We still have a lot of respect for each other as cricketers and their abilities. That way, it's not something like people tend to perhaps imagine. There's a lot of animosity around. No, it doesn't. It's not that way, because sport is something that brings people together. That's also brought in nations together. So that is the only uh, thing that makes sport unique, because that is something which puts everything under the carpet, and it creates a platform for everybody to be on even keel and become better and cordial.
So, அதே சமயம், just to take Badri's question a little further, அந்த pressure இருக்கும் இல்லையா, perform பண்ணணும் அப்படிங்கிற pressure, be it somebody who's playing for his career, his place in the team, or India playing Pakistan in a World Cup match, for example. இதே வந்து corporate roomsலயும் translates இல்லையா, some teams need to perform, otherwise the whole team will let go. இந்த மாதிரி situationsல how does a team handle it, and what's the role of a leader in that?
The first thing that a leader needs to do is to absorb the pressure. He does not translate that to the team, because it's very important for a leader to have a poker face, not allow the emotions to come through, for it to be very obvious for his team members. That is the most important thing. And in terms of pressure, there is bound to be pressure in every international contest, whether even if it is, let's say, against Zimbabwe or Bangladesh. I'm not being critical about Bangladesh or Zimbabwe, because the emotions don't run that high as it used to those days when India played Pakistan. Even then, the emotion, the pressure element would be there in the players, because it's a no-win situation for us. Suppose I were to get a double under against Bangladesh, people will say, "Hey, Bangladesh, what's the big deal?" And if I don't get runs, I would say even against Bangladesh, he is not performing. So it's a no-win situation for a sports person. You know what I mean? So the pressure element is going to be there. So what is important is that anxiety will be there. You have to learn to somehow develop a mechanism individually to overcome it. And it will help all the team members a lot if the leader is one who does not translate that pressure onto his team members, or transfer the pressure rather to his teammates. He needs to absorb it. Like if you see, let's say, for example, Dhoni on the field, you don't know what is going through his head, because he is able to be very calm, and he doesn't allow his emotions to come through. So that way, it helps his team members also. So that is how I think even the corporate world, like for example, now let's say in a situation like this now, there is no way the sales team can show the numbers, let's say at the end of the financial year or the year that you normally do appraisals. Now, if you have a boss who can't stand up to the board and say, now, given the circumstances, given the way the market was, it is not possible to do even 30% of our regular numbers. If he doesn't have that courage and also the will to stand up for the team and talk to the board, then all of you are in trouble. And that is not a leader. And the other thing is, the team should have the confidence in their leader to say, yes, when there's a difficulty, enough efforts are being taken, he is going to have our backs. That confidence you must have in the leader, and that's how a leader should be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And some relevant examples that you quoted, which I'm sure a lot of participants are going through as such. I would like to invite Linda to ask her first question, perhaps touching upon some of the aspects she wanted to touch on. Linda, can you hear us? Yeah, you're unmuted now.
Sure. Hello, sir. A very good afternoon, a good evening to you.
Hi, Linda. Good evening.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
It's such a great privilege, actually, to be having this conversation with you. It's such a dignified and a humble and a noble and a majestic, and I would just go on with such words to actually know about you. And having this short conversation, it was so inspiring to see such a great leader, sir. So I would like to just straight away go to my certain questions, which I would like to just get to know. Sure. So with this competitive world, there are so many women and so many girls, I would say, young aspirants who want to touch certain success in their life. What do you think would be the key success factors for women to actually outshine in this competitive world, having to go through many hurdles in their life?
The important factor would be for them to try and strike an emotional balance. By that I mean that what tends to happen is that they should not get too elated when they taste success, and conversely, they should not get too dejected when they, suffer a setback. Now, especially in a competitive world. In normal life, yes, I do believe that women handle the setbacks far better than the men can do at times. I do understand that. But in a competitive environment, like let's say a sport or let's say in a corporate world or whatever, um, it is something that they need to develop. They need to develop a balance of being emotionally the same. Because what happens is that if it is obvious that a minor setback can make you really dejected, then it is something that others will exploit.
So there is a relevant follow-up question to that from Shashank. Shashank, I will let him ask other questions, but since Linda's question is this, a follow-up question from Shashank is that how did you manage the women's team when they lost the T20 final in Australia, against Australia?
See, obviously they were very disappointed. I just told them only one thing. I said, girls, you've done yourself proud. The very fact that you made tremendous progress in a period of last 12 months is something to be proud of. And let's not forget that this was a young side. It is a very young side. And for them to have done what they did, because we were in a group of death, and to qualify from that group and to reach the finals and to have done as well as we did in the tri series, I said was something to be proud of. And I said, this is something that has also taught you some lesson, because if this is what we're capable of, we have to step it up as we get on to the field in the following months, and we should be happy about it. This is not something to really sort of be too dejected. At the same time, we also have to have this as an important landmark event for us to have learned something from this,
And
which is to keep getting better and better.
Did they face it in an emotionally balanced way that you prescribe women should face things, sir?
They were far better than what they were when I took charge of them. For example, I remember we were playing against England in early 19, and we lost games which was, something that people would never would have probably tolerated or forgiven us for. We lost a game where we had to get 4 or 5 runs of the last over. We lost that game. We needed to get 10 runs of 3 overs. We lost a game in the T20 format. Of course, one of our key players was not playing that game, but we lost the games badly in the T20 format. From that to the way they played, the way they progressed, and the way they played in Australia on those pitches and against extremely good sides and under pressure in a big event, I thought that was tremendous progress. I don't think genuinely, if you were to ask everybody in the fraternity, they would not have envisaged the girls playing the way they played in those 8-10 weeks.
Brilliant. I'm sure a lot of credit is due to you, the coach, and the coaching team as well. Sir, I would like to now move on to others.
Once again, it's never to the coach and the coaching staff. It's to the players, because it is their hard work, it's their open-mindedness, and it's there also their acceptance that they needed to improve. Let me stress here: all of us can talk till the cows come home, like you said earlier. But the most important thing is acceptance coming from ourselves. Yes, that this is where we are wrong. We need to get better and start working towards it with diligence. That is the key to anything in life.
100%, of course. Great. There are a few points that we want to touch upon on the women's cricket and women's role in corporate in general, but we'll come back to that. We'll go in this order. We'll start with Mr. Nelian Solayappan from USA, and then go on to Mr. Balamurugan for questions. திரு நெல்லியன் சோலையப்பன், நான் பேசுறது கேக்குதா உங்களோட?
கேக்குது. Hello, WS sir. It's a great pleasure meeting you. Just like everybody else, I grew up watching cricket, and you take on West Indies in Chennai. Incidentally, appoda na cricket paaka aarambichadunala it still stays fresh with me. It's my pleasure talking to you today.
நல்லது சார், உங்களுக்கு ஞாபகம் இருக்கு, எனக்கு மறந்து போச்சு.
We're reminding you multiple times today, so
yeah, I'm getting reminded by your.
Another question, as a coach, as a leader, you influence others to act a certain way, take decisions for them. மித்தவங்களுக்கு நீங்க இந்த மாதிரி பண்ணுங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்லி கொடுத்து அவங்க அதை பண்ணும்போது when that fails, அந்த backfiring வந்து slightly different from a collective result. As a coach and as a leader, நீங்க அதை எப்படி ஹேண்டில் பண்றீங்க? Because that's relevant for family life, corporate life, எல்லாத்துக்குமே it's a common theme. நம்ம பண்ணி நம்மளே தோத்து போறதை விட when you coach others and have them do certain things, அது சரியா வராதும் பொழுது how do you handle that?
The first and important thing, Naleswakan, is that we don't influence anybody. We don't try to influence either their words or their actions. What we try to do is to try and give them a suggestion. Now, if that suggestion should only be given if you are confident that if this suggestion doesn't provide another option of doing this, you can't be a one-trick pony. As a leader or as somebody who is suggesting somebody, say, okay, if this is to work, I'll try and help you with another option. Maybe that will work. Because not one thing will work for all the people, and it's not a case also that, all the things that you say will have to work all the time. So it is very important for us to even get into suggesting things only when we know we are capable of providing 2-3 other options for the persons that we are suggesting.
So how important is it to create an atmosphere of experimentation and allowance of failure, especially in the cutthroat world, need to perform, win at all cost world we are in?
How do you do it? It's very simple. You try and make others evolve. Allow them to do things. Like, it's not about, if I'm the coach, it doesn't mean I shouldn't take the stance that, if the team wins, I'm going to get an extension of my contract for the next 5 years. That should not be in my head. I must think, if I'm going to be handling a group of people for the next, let's say, for 6 months or 6 years or whatever, by the time I leave that group and go, I should have made a significant difference. And I should have made each one of them better than they were when I took over. Now, that should be my mindset.
So it's very relevant. ஏன்னா அடுத்த திரு பாலமுருகன் அவர்களை ஒரு கேள்வி கேட்க சொல்ல போறேன். It seems like our political cycle now is now revolving around 5-year elections. How am I going to win the next election? It's just complete antithesis of the best principle that you're establishing. So அந்த தொனில திரு பாலமுருகன் நான் பேசுறது உங்களுக்கு கேக்குதா?
கேக்குது.
பாலமுருகன், நீங்க பொலிட்டிக்ஸ் அண்ட் கிரிக்கெட் பத்தி ஒரு கேள்வி வச்சிருந்தீங்க, அதை சொல்லுங்க.
குட் ஈவினிங் டபிள்யூ ராமன் சார், வணக்கம். நானும் சென்னை தான். ஸோ உங்களுடைய மேட்ச்லாம் வந்து வணக்கம் சார், நானும் சென்னை தான். உங்க மேட்ச்லாம் நான் சென்னையில கேக்குங்க. ஓகே சார், நான் சென்னையில இருக்கும்போது உங்க மேட்ச்லாம் நிறைய பார்த்துருக்கேன். ஏன்னா நீங்க வந்து எனக்கு வந்து ரொம்ப ஸ்பெஷல். ஏன்னா நம்ம டீம்ல லெஃப்ட் ஹேண்டரே ரொம்ப கம்மி. லெஃப்ட் ஹேண்டரே இல்லாத போது நீங்க லெஃப்ட் ஹேண்டர்ல வந்து ஆடும்போது எனக்கு ரொம்ப சந்தோஷம். ரொம்ப கலக்குனீங்க லெஃப்ட் ஹேண்டர்ல. ஸோ அந்த வகையில என்ன உங்களை வந்து எனக்கு ரொம்ப பிடிக்கும் சார். எனக்கு இப்போ என்னுடைய கொஸ்டின் என்னன்னா, நீங்க இப்போ கிரிக்கெட்டரா வந்திருக்கீங்க, கோச் ரஞ்சி டிராஃபில இருந்து எல்லாமே ஆடி இருக்கீங்க, கோச்சாவும் எல்லாருக்குமே இருந்திருக்கீங்க. இப்போ வந்து நீங்க எப்படி டிஃபரன்ஷியேட் பண்ணுவீங்களா? அது நான் ஒரு லீடர்ஷிப்ன்றது ஸ்போர்ட்ஸ்ல இருக்கிற ஒரு லீடர்ஷிப், கார்பரேட் செக்ரட்டரிஸ்ல ஒரு லீடர்ஷிப், அதே மாதிரி பொலிட்டிக்கல்ல வரும்போது லீடர்ஷிப்புக்கு எதனா டிஃபரன்ஸ் இருக்கா? இல்ல வேற வேற மாதிரி எதனா ஆங்கிள் அவங்களுடைய ஸ்கில்ஸை வளர்த்துக்கணுமா? லீடர்ஷிப்ன்றது எப்படி, எந்த வகையில நீங்க பாக்குறீங்க?
சார், லீடர்ஷிப் பண்றது என்னை பொறுத்த மட்டும் நான் முதலே சொன்ன மாதிரி, நம்ம வந்து நான் தான் எல்லாம், நானே ராஜா நானே மந்திரின்னு நினைக்க கூடாது. நம்ம ஒரு அணின்னு வச்சிருக்கோம்னா, அதாவது ஒரு டீம் இருக்கட்டும், ஸ்போர்ட்ல இருக்கட்டும், கார்பரேட் வேர்ல்ட்ல இருக்கட்டும், எங்கேயா இருக்கட்டும், நம்ம வந்து அதுக்கு வந்து மிச்ச பேர் அந்த அணியில வந்து கூட ஒன்னா சேர்ந்து ஒன்னா வேலை பண்ணி எது பண்ணுமோ அத அந்த முறையில நம்ம ஈடுபடணும். இப்ப எப்படின்னா, நான் வந்துட்டு இப்போ ஒரு டீம் கேப்டன்னா, சரிப்பா நாளைக்கு காத்தால 6 மணி பிராக்டிஸ் எல்லாம் வந்துருங்க சொல்லிட்டு நான் வந்துட்டு 9 மணிக்கு வரக்கூடாது. அது அழகு கிடையாது லீடருக்கு. அதாவது ஸ்போர்ட்லயும் சரி, கார்பரேட் வேர்ல்ட்லயும் சரி. இப்போ நீங்க அரசியல் எடுக்கிறீங்களா, அரசியல் பத்தி எனக்கு தெரியாது. பிகாஸ் அங்க வந்து நீட்ஸே வேற. அங்க வந்துட்டு என்ன தேவைப்படும்ன்றது ஒரு ஐடியாவே கிடையாது. பிகாஸ் நான் இதை பத்தி பார்த்ததும் கிடையாது, ஈடுபட்டதும் கிடையாது, கேட்டதும் கிடையாது மிச்ச பேரை. நீங்க கார்பரேட் வேர்ல்டு சரி, ஸ்போர்ட் சரி, நான் பேச முடியும். மிச்சது எனக்கு தெரியாது, எது தெரியாதோ நான் தெரியாதுன்னு ஒத்துப்பேன்.
சரி சார். சார், do you vote?
Don't ask me such questions,
Okay.
boss.
Okay. I thought I will try my luck, but I won't insist anymore. Okay. Sir, next I want to move on to Mr. Francois Gaston from France, who is heading the MNM team in France. Francois, can you hear us?
Yeah, கேக்குது. உங்களுக்கு கேக்குதுங்களா?
Yes, Francois, please go ahead.
So, வணக்கம் ராம் சார். Thank Kannan Bro and MNM நண்பர்கள் for giving me this opportunity. எனக்கு சும்மா 2 கேள்வி மட்டும் கேட்டுறேன் சார், ஏன்னா டைம் ரொம்ப கம்மியா இருக்கு. ஸோ நீங்க வந்து ஐ மீன் ஸ்போர்ட்ஸ்மேன் அண்ட் உலகத்துல வந்து நிறைய ஸ்போர்ட்ஸ்மேனுங்களுக்கெல்லாம் வந்து கோச் ஆர் ட்ரெயினர்ஸ் வந்து தேவைப்படுது. இப்போ வந்து உங்களுக்கு நீங்க வந்து as a கோச் உங்களுக்கு வந்து ஏதாவது உங்களுக்கு ஏதாவது ஒரு ட்ரெயினர் உங்களுக்குன்ட்டு தேவைப்படுதா, இல்ல வந்து செல்ஃப் மோட்டிவேஷனல் ஆக்டிவிட்டிஸ், ரீடிங் புக்ஸ், அது இஸ் இட் இனஃப், ஆர் யூ ரியலி நீட் அ குரு ஆர் அ ட்ரெயினர் ஃபார் அ பிசிக்கல் ட்ரெயினர்? இதுதான் முதல் கேள்வி சார்.
See, to be honest, for me at my age, I need to do the basic kind of physical training. It doesn't make sense for me to have a separate trainer, because what happens is that I am past the stage where you can give structured training. And in terms of the mental side of things that you are asking me about, I tend to read a lot, because I have to confess that we all learn till we breathe our last. We need to keep learning all the time, because otherwise what will happen is that I remember seeing a fantastic poster in one office very early in my life. It said, stretch, grow, else you will shrink. What it meant was that always look to keep learning, so that you will have, you'll grow all the time. Yeah, unga தலைவரே சொல்லியிருக்காரு, நான் ஸ்கூல் I dropped out of school, but my learning didn't stop. That was a classic statement by your leader Kamal Hassan. So what I'm trying to say is, each and every day of our lives we have opportunities to learn. We must have that mentality to learn. So what I do is I read a lot of books about, let's say, the other sports coaches, like baseball, football, or other sporting federations journals, or wherever I type something, I see a link, I'll read that. So that is the way you have to keep learning. And if you don't read, I don't think, and I'm trying to insist on that, if you stop learning, you will really run into a lot of problems. You'll have to keep learning all the time. whether it's by watching some great biographies and true stories, or whether by reading books, or whether by talking to whoever you think are knowledgeable. It's up to you. The format through which you learn is not important, but what is important is you must learn.
Sure, Francois, did you have a follow-up question to that?
Yeah, just my second question வந்து it's related to language. So நீங்க வந்து ஒரு லீடர்னு சொல்லியிருக்கீங்க. இப்போ நம்ம இந்தியன் கிரிக்கெட் டீம் பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் இஸ் த லாங்குவேஜ் இஸ் ஒரு பேரியரா? ஏன்னா வந்து இப்போ I mean we would like to have someone from Tamil Nadu as a captain. It's a dream from all Tamils actually. இது சாத்தியமா இல்ல வந்து can he succeed without knowing Hindi, for example? இது ஒன்றும் கான்ட்ரோவர்சல் இல்ல, ஜஸ்ட் ஃபார்
இல்ல கரெக்ட். நோ, இது இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங் நீங்க கேக்குறது. சி என்னாச்சுன்னா, ரீசென்ட்லி I did an interview with Kapil Dev. I've done a show called Inside Out, which is on the YouTube and also on the podcast. So I called Kapil and I said, Caps, I want to do an interview, but I'll only talk to you in Hindi. You should talk in English. This interview has to be different. ஸோ சரி ஓகே அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு அவரும் ஸ்போர்ட்டிவாக வந்தார். ஃபுல் இன்டர்வியூ நான் ஹிந்தியில் பண்ணியிருக்கேன். நான் கேட்ட கேள்வியெல்லாம் ஹிந்தியில் தான் கேட்டிருக்கேன். அவர் பாதி இங்கிலீஷ் பாதி ஹிந்தியில் ஆன்சர் பண்ணியிருக்காரு. இது என்ன ஆகும்னா, இதில் வேடிக்கை என்னன்னா, எனக்கு தெரிஞ்ச மட்டும் தமிழ்நாடுலேருந்து எவ்வளோ கிரிக்கெட்டர்ஸ் இந்தியன் டீம் ஆடி இருக்காங்களோ அவங்க எல்லாருமே ஹிந்தி பேச கற்றுன்னு இருக்காங்க. வெங்கட் ராகவன்லேருந்து எடுத்து நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா, ஸ்ரீகாந்த் ஒருத்தர் தான் ஒரு எக்ஸெப்ஷன். அதுல அவர் இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் காட்டல ஹிந்தி கத்துக்கிறதுக்கு. அவர் ஈஸியா கத்துனது இருப்பாரு, ஏன்னா அவ்வளவு வருஷம் ஆடி இருக்காரு, ரொம்ப ஈஸியா கத்துன்னு இருப்பாரு. ஸ்ட்ரகிள் பண்ணுவாருன்னு சொல்ல முடியாது. ஹிந்தி பேசினா என்ன ஆகும்னா, அந்த ஜோக்ஸ் கீக்ஸ் அதெல்லாம் கொஞ்சம் நல்லாவே இருக்கும். இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் நிறைய என்டர்டெயின்மெண்ட் கிடைக்கும். இப்ப ஹிந்தி ஃபுல்லா தெரியலன்னா அவங்க மிச்ச பேர் ஹிந்தியில ஏதாவது ஜோக் இருந்தாலோ வேடிக்கை ஏதாவது பேசினாலோ ப்ராப்ளம் வராது இந்தியன் டீம்ல. இன்னொரு விதமா பார்க்க போனா அவங்க கத்துக்கிறதோட நம்ம ஹிந்தி கத்துக்கிறது ஈஸியா இருக்கும். நம்ம சீக்கிரமா கத்துப்போம்.
தேங்க்யூ சார். தேங்க்யூ.
தேங்க்யூ பிரான்சுவா. நெக்ஸ்ட் ஐ இன்வைட் சுதாகர். Sudhakar, நான் பேசுறது கேக்குதா?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Mr. W. Raman, to share your valuable time with us. The question one, it's similar to probably what Solay asked. See, as a coach, like you could make a great plan, right? Like you could come up with a great plan and you could analyze and then like come up with a great plan. But then the execution is dependent on players, and sometimes when the plan completely doesn't, like the execution doesn't go as per your plan, what do you do? How do you intervene and then course correct? And again, like cricket match sport, the timeouts are very limited. So how do you do that? Like how do you make the changes on the fly and then make sure that like you can still influence the results and then course correct?
See, even before you get into the game, you allocate roles. You also define what they're supposed to do. But in sport, let's face it, it's always a 50-50 chance. There is no guarantee for everything that you decide or every plan that you make that you are assured of success. But by and large, what will happen is that most of the times, let's say, for example, your plans based on the form of the players and the roles that you allocated, that works out, and it depends on various factors. அது நிறைய டைம் எடுக்கும் இப்போ பேசினா. But if it doesn't happen, what is left for you to do? Nothing, because you can't intervene in cricket unless there's a test match. Okay, from one session to another session, we can slowly crawl our way back. Like let's say, for example, in a T20, if 20 minutes go against you completely, there's no coming back in that. So you'll have to wait for the next game. And that is where it is important for coaches not to transfer that pressure that they feel of either plans going RI or either results going against you, they should not transfer it to the players. So this is where it is very important for a coach or a leader to be like a sponge.
Brilliant. So thank you so much. We're almost at the end of the program. You know, we probably have a couple of quick questions, and then we would have Badri present the vote of thanks. So I would like to invite Sender, who is the secretary of MNM Nanbargal in UK, to ask his question. Sender.
Yeah, hello, sir. Good evening. It's really a great honor to have you, sir, and thanks to our M&M team for organizing this. So my question is this based on my background is I'm a physiotherapist, and one of my specialties is orthopedics and sports injuries. With regards to finding the skill set assessment in the cricket, do we have again like any specific tools like to assess a skill set of a bowler and a batsman or an all-rounder? Can you able to have do you have an assessment skill test?
See, it is a case of you seeing somebody and making an assessment. Let's say in the case of fast bowlers, you can at least have a speed gun. You can find out what pace he is bowling at. There are no such gadgets for a batsman because batting, what is important is judgment, movement and execution. You don't have the tools to analyze that like you have for a fast bowler. For a spinner, even you can you have gadgets to say how much degrees it's spinning, what is the extent of width that is spinning. But by and large, Patale, you will know one boy will be turning the ball a lot more than the other boy, or one batsman will be responding better to all kinds of deliveries bowled at him than the other. But again, this can vary. Let's say 6 months later, if you see the same two people, the situation might be reversed. One will be the other fellow who was not that good earlier occasion, he might be better than the fellow who was good in the earlier occasion. So this is all sort of something that can always vary, and especially in cricket, there are a lot of variables. So that is why we always say, even during a match, we won't talk about the possible result, or also we won't write off any player, because a player who's not in form will improve by leaps and bounds in the next 6 months. At the same time, the form can also dip badly. So that is what makes sports so exciting for everybody. That is the beauty about sports, because you can't predict, because it's all about a lot of variables, primarily because it is the humans who play the sport and the human element will come in. That is why there are a lot of variables.
Absolutely, that's what makes the sport beautiful. That's what probably the most beautiful sport in the world, in my view. So, before I hand over to Kannan and probably we start wrapping the program up, thank you so much from my side. It's been an absolute pleasure to host you and moderate the comments. கொஞ்சம் அரிபரியா இருந்தது எல்லாத்தையும் ஆர்கனைஸ் பண்ணி இந்த கொஸ்டின் கேட்கிறதுக்கு. So I can concentrate fully on listening to everything, but I'm sure there will be another time. So I have a question. I had many questions I couldn't ask, but did you happen to see England play West Indies? And essentially what I talk about is how the cricket has come back after Corona. And what did you specifically think about Stuart Broad's performance, if you did see the matches? And how do you think this Corona, which is also an extremely unpredictable event, affect the cricketing fraternity, and how's the morale and how's the outlook into the future?
See, I did not watch the second and third test match. I watched quite a bit of the first test, the match that Broad didn't play. It was interesting that he was fuming and fretting and displaying his anger almost when he was not playing the first test match. But the important thing is that he's come back and he's picked up a lot of wickets, and he's also achieved the milestone of 500 wickets, which is a fantastic achievement, because you don't have many bowlers in the world who have reached that milestone. He's done it, especially when he has a partner also who's achieved that 500 wickets. It means that it's a testimony to both of them. for their ability to work as a team together and also individually churn out performances and backing each other over a period of time. That is brilliant. In terms of Corona affecting cricket, yes, it is definitely affected because a lot of schedules had to be either cancelled or you had to rework the schedules because these days the international calendar is planned way in advance, which means that once again there's going to be a lot of reworking of those schedules. As well as cricketers and obviously sports persons or even non-sporting people also, they are all stunned, and subjected to a lot of hardship by this corona. There's nothing anybody can do. Uh, but the thing is that all of us are only thinking of ensuring that we stay safe and we also help others stay safe. And we know this is a difficult phase for us to tide over, and we have to do what we have to do because we also have a role to play as a citizen in the society. We have to ensure that we follow the safety protocols and encourage others to do it. And when lives are going to be at stake, and when people are going to face hardships in terms of their livelihood, and also the possibility of having to face retrenchment, then I think everything else becomes secondary. So in a way, it's good that cricket is started happening because people have been subjected to a lot of hardship. Yes, sport once again can lift the spirit of the people. It can provide a lot of entertainment because even if they're not getting to see live by going to the venues, even while watching it on the television, it can result in their spirits being raised, because let's not forget it is not only a case of the physiological danger due to this pandemic, there are also mental issues are also on the increase. So the return of cricket would have made a lot of people feel better. It would have provided a lot of entertainment, a lot of delight, and a lot of excitement as well. So along those lines, the return is good, but let's not forget, life has to be safe, after which everything else comes into play.
Absolutely. No second opinions on that. Thank you, sir. With that, I hand over to Kannan. Kannan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Satish. Thank you for moderating. Really appreciate that. WE, I got a question for you from a coaching angle. I'll give you a couple of examples before I ask you the question. I follow the American sports. I haven't followed cricket since Viv Richards retired. So it's 1991. So I don't know what's going on in the world of cricket.
I don't blame you.
So Triple K and West Indies cricket teams, the passion for that. So the question is, the Dallas Cowboys, the American football, Dallas Cowboys is they labeled themselves as the America's team. And there was 1 year, probably 10, 15 years back, where they were going to do, they did 13-3 during the regular season. And then the expectation was they'll go all the way to the Super Bowl, maybe win it too. But then in the first game, in the playoff, there was a 1 week gap. And what the coach did was he gave the players time off, and promptly a couple of the main guys on the team, including the quarterback, they went away to Mexico on a holiday with their girlfriends. Okay, and then they come back the next week to play, and then they got thrown out, in the playoff. They lost the first game, and that was it, the end of the season for them. So the team came in for a lot of flack. So my question to you is, how do you manage as a coach when you come to these kind of key games, as you go through the rounds and come to the key games? What kind of atmosphere do you create within the team? Do you get them focused more, intense and everything, or you ask them to relax and get away from it all before they come back?
See, it is very important for every individual to do things the way it suits them, the way it works for them. It can't be a case of, one hat fits all.
Sure.
Yes, at the most, what he can perhaps do is to try and say, yes, I don't want anybody doing things that are not going to be in the best interest of the team. like you said, people going away. I'm not saying that is the reason they lost, but I would probably say that there are certain things that you cannot afford to do if you're a part of this team. But in terms of them managing their time, managing their mindsets, yes, it has to be done the way it works for them and the way it has worked for them in the past as well. I'll only get into it if there's a specific approach and if a player is finding it difficult to reach the kind of focus levels or the kind of mind space that they want to be in. If they're struggling with that to get there, is when I come into the frame. Otherwise, it is going to be a case of the coach intervention being counterproductive, because mind is a very complex thing. Even without you interfering, it is very difficult for a sports person to consistently get to get into the right zone all the time. So interference from a coach can be counterproductive. So the simple thing is that only if there's an approach made from a player, I'll get into it.
Okay, no, thank you for that insight. I really appreciate that. Before I hand over to Badri, I would like to say thanks to the MNM teams that came in from France, Australia, and I think Ireland and Malaysia as well had joined the call. And US, of course. We had quite a few people from US and the teams from India as well. Thank you very much, guys, for joining and taking the time. Badri, over to you, and thank you, WB, for. I really appreciate what you've done for us here.
Yes,
Badri.
ரொம்ப நன்றி Raman sir. It's been an absolute pleasure, spending so much time with you. We've always been watching you on television or coming to the ground, and this pandemic in a way has made us up close and personal, where we are able to directly ask questions, and you're able to answer different unique aspects on leadership. Best wishes for your book and also for your upcoming any new avatars in the years to come. It's been really great, sir. And and as Kannan Swami has already thanked, thanks for all the other MNM teams around the world, from Australia, from France, from other North America as well. Special thanks goes to Kannan Swami for giving us this opportunity and arranging this session. Satish for absolutely hosting it brilliantly, and been a real absolute delight being part of this conversation, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Raman, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome, Badri. Thank you, Satish, and thanks, Kannan. And I would like to once again thank all of you for having me out here to have an interaction with all you young people, and vibrant young people at that. I hope you enjoyed the interaction, and I'd like to sign off by wishing you all the very best in all your future endeavors. Take care and stay safe. That's become the most important mantra now in the last few months. Hopefully, as I said at the start, it won't be long. It may be probably a case of us saying this to each other only in the next 2-3 months. Let's hope that some vaccine comes out to save all of us from this once for all.
No, thank you, Raman. Again, I would also like to thank the MNM team from Chennai, the technical team, Sajeesh, Vinod, and Naveen, for supporting us here. Thank you very much. Good night, all.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.